Hi Mzansi, you are listening to Farmers Inside Track, proudly brought to you by Food for Mzansi. I am your host, Patricia Tembo, and welcome to episode 527. So today we're looking at greenhouse crop protection. This episode is set to be both informative and practical as we welcome MJ Nunes, who is an agricultural manager and the founder of Sable Creek Farms. MJ Nunes, welcome to Farmers Inside Track. We are, of course, happy to have you on the podcast once again.
Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. It's lovely to be with you guys on this podcast.
Then MJ, you are the director and owner of Sable Creek Farms, but you're also an agriculturalist, with a speciality in agricultural management. And so previously on the podcast, we've unpacked aquaponics and your involvement with that as well. But for our audience who haven't heard of you or Sable Creek Farms, maybe just give us a brief idea of what you do. I suppose you could lead us into today's topic, which is crop protection in greenhouse systems, and speak a little bit more about the operations that you're running on the farm in terms of greenhouses.
Yes, so we are an aquaponics business here in between Polokwane and Mokopane, where we farm fish and vegetables or fresh produce and herbs in a symbiotic system together where both of them benefit each other, the plants and the fish. And we also run a tilapia hatchery, Mozambique tilapia hatchery, where we then breed fish for our own systems as well as we sell fish to other aquaponic system owners and aquaculture farmers as well as normal farmers that have dams on their farms. So we also have some pomegranates growing and some prickly pears. And then we also do a lot of baby veg as well that we've recently started. So yeah, we've got a few things that we do on the farm. We also offer many services to our clients that are interested in aquaponics and that have any problems regarding aquaponics. We offer training as well as system installations. To get onto the topic about pest control and crop management in greenhouses, it is a bit of a different farming technique where we've got a closed environment that we can control, as where in soil it is a bit more difficult because most of the soil production is big areas. We're talking hectares and hectares. So it isn't a controlled environment where we can, a controlled space where we can control pests, diseases and things like that as well. That's my point of it in a nutshell of pest and disease management and crop management in a greenhouse.
Awesome. And recently, my colleagues and I at Food for Mzansi, we had the opportunity to visit you on the farm and see how you are running the greenhouse on your farm. It was quite interesting to see how you've managed to do that in the closed system. And I'm understanding that the main difference between open field crop protection and in the greenhouse is that with the greenhouse, it's a closed system and you have very innovative ways of doing that. Maybe going deeper into how you are doing it. What are the early warning signs that you could perhaps give farmers to look out for when monitoring for pests and diseases in a greenhouse or closed system?
We take a day or two in the week where we do scouting, where we walk through the system and look at all the plants in detail and see if there are any pests or diseases on the plants. And normally the two or one person that is running the greenhouse will come and tell me if there is a problem. A lot of the times I am with them when we are doing the scouting. So it's a very, very important aspect or factor that we've brought into the management of our greenhouse is the scouting, to know that how we can prevent pests and diseases and how we can get rid of it later on if it is a problem already. So a little secret that I have recently in the past few years have seen that works is we plant rose bushes in front of our greenhouses. Now, rose bushes usually get diseases and pests before any other fresh produce type herbs or lettuce or any vegetable. So what we do is before we scout the greenhouse, we will then have a look at our roses that are planted in front of our greenhouses. Mm-hmm. And then that will tell us if we've got a problem or if we are still in the green zone. We call it a green and a red zone. That is the thing that is working fantastic for us on the farm. It gives us an early alarm warning to know that we have a problem with pests or diseases coming.
That was what I was referring to earlier when I said, you have some very innovative and, smart ways of approaching crop protection. Is it something that you would recommend farmers to also try out, like, to plant rose bushes ahead of the actual produce?
Yes, I would definitely recommend it. Where I did see this technique done first is in the Western Cape, where vineyard farmers plant roses next to their vineyard rows because there are certain illnesses the vineyards get that the roses also get. So the rose will get that sickness or disease before the vineyard will get it. So I picked it up there, and then I planted a rose bush in the system, and then it started to get aphids before the rest of all the other crops in our system. So that's when I implemented it in this type of system. And from then I have had minimal pest problems and disease problems. So yes, it really helps us a lot. And I would motivate farmers to implement it on their farms and in their systems, in their farming techniques, just to help them a little bit. Having pests and diseases can, I would say, break your whole profit of your farming in one season. So it's very, very important to implement things that can alarm you and warn you when there are situations coming.
Maybe if we can speak a little bit more about the control methods, the ones that you would say are most beneficial when working in a greenhouse. And you did mention scouting, but are there other control methods that you are utilizing that you would recommend to a farmer?
Yes, so you can make use of normal pest control traps that we've got in our greenhouses where it's not necessary to spray harsh chemicals. We are unfortunately not allowed to spray, actually, fortunately, for health reasons and unfortunately for pest reasons to get rid of them. But unfortunately, we cannot spray any harsh pesticides in our greenhouses because if the pesticide comes into contact with the water and it goes through the system, it will kill our fish. So we make use of organic or biological pest repellents. So it's not a pesticide. We use biological and organic things that are fish friendly. But there are certain traps that are available to use in greenhouses and in open fields to eliminate certain types of pests. But there are other ways of checking if there are insects, but the main one is to do scouting. It is very, very important to do scouting, even in any field, farm field or orchard or greenhouse. It is very, very important to do scouting to know what's going on with your plants and if you are pest free or if you've got a pest problem.
And speaking of pests, of course, one can look at them as, depending on the pest, as biological control agents. So with a greenhouse system, how can a farmer identify which pests or insects or just biological control agents? How can they identify those as being beneficial in controlling pests?
Yes, so there are certain pests that have got trademarks, if I can say it like that, on crops. You can see that whiteflies does this to a leaf, and leaf miner has got a little path on the leaf, and aphids have also got a trademark on plants, and then like a spider webbish type of thing on the leaves is the trademark of red spider mite. So it's carried down over the years. So people talk, and there are diagrams and there are studies done of the pests and what they do and how they look and things like that. But it is also important that we also scout and check for predatory insects, which are, in our eyes, the good ones, such as spiders, praying mantises, and ladybirds or ladybugs, which are insects that feed on other insects but not on plant matter. So it is very important to scout for those. If you are farming in a greenhouse or in a field and you are able to use harsh chemicals, it is just good to know if you have predatory insects available close to you to rather use that than spray harsh chemicals. I know it is a bit difficult to not spray harsh chemicals, but if there are predatory insects, it's nature, let it take its course. It also cuts a bit down on chemicals for spraying pesticides, which has an overall effect on your production cost as well, making it a bit of a better situation for profit. So yes, it is important to scout and to check what types of pests are there, what type of predatory insects are there that are, we call them friends that sort out certain pests in the greenhouse or in open fields.
It's good you've mentioned the phrase predatory insects because one would think just seeing, like you mentioned, a praying mantis, you'd be like, oh no, that's a pest. We need to kill it. Meanwhile, it could actually be beneficial in getting rid of the actual pests in the systems. Maybe if we could look at sanitation and hygiene and the role that plays in greenhouses, in greenhouse farming systems, what practices do you recommend in terms of sanitation?
Yes, so sanitation is a very, very important thing. Biosecurity is very important. If we're talking about disease, if I said in my last podcast with you that if I go to a fish farm or greenhouse today and I come back and go into my greenhouse, I can carry in diseases through my hands and feet. So we've implemented at our greenhouse is a footbath that carries chemicals that we dip our feet into before we go into the greenhouse. So that will eliminate any diseases, problems, bacterial infections that we can bring into the greenhouse for fish and plants. If we're talking about plants now, it is very, very important to have the correct biosecurity procedures in place. Things like your hands, people that use tobacco products can easily give over tobacco mosaic virus. That is a very, very bad disease for plants, certain plants, tomatoes, as well as chilies and peppers and so on. And that can take out a whole crop. So it's very, very important that biosecurity is in place, that certain diseases and viruses for plants and fish are eliminated before going into the greenhouse. It is, I would say also, any normal farm should also have biosecurity procedures in place. I mean, it's no bigger difference of farming in one greenhouse and a guy has planted 20 hectares of peppers and one guy comes there, one person comes there that's used tobacco products and can take out his whole 20 hectares. So it is very, very important to use correct sanitation. Another thing as well is aphids are also a carrier of tobacco mosaic virus. So that is where we've seen now that a pest that also has a bad influence on a plant carries over a disease to a plant as well. So it is very, very important that your spraying programs are in place as well as your biosecurity.
Speaking of biosecurity and, the phytosanitary measures, I'm just curious now to know when there is a disease identified, does quarantining play a role in that? Is that something that you do in a greenhouse system? How do you approach the phytosanitary requirements or measures with the plant itself and not necessarily the transmission between humans or vectors like the aphids you mentioned, but the crop itself? Is quarantine something that is done? Quarantining.
Let's touch on fish quickly before we talk about plants. Fish are more easier to be able to quarantine and get better from diseases and sicknesses. Plants are a bit more difficult depending on what disease, virus, bacterial infection, fungus, whatever they've got. It depends how bad the situation is and it depends on the type of disease or sickness that the plant has. Certain illnesses and sicknesses and diseases are treatable in plants through spraying and certain procedures given to you by your local guy that will supply you with these things to spray for diseases. But then you get certain diseases that are really, really difficult to get rid of and some that you cannot even get rid of. Tobacco mosaic virus is one that you have to take out your whole crop. Unfortunately, you can try, but basically you won't be able to get the plants in the same condition they were before they got the virus. So it's very important that your biosecurity is in place as well as your pest control because either or can bring in diseases. Things like fungus are a bit more of an easier thing or mildew is a fungus which is much more easier to handle and to eliminate from your crop. Like I said, certain things are really, really difficult to get rid of and certain things are quite easy to get rid of. So if your procedures are in place, it just is so much better than having a problem and struggling to get rid of it. So it's all about procedure and management at the end of the day.
So now, to give an example, a farmer has identified a disease in this closed system in the greenhouse. What steps do they take once they have identified a disease?
So basically, he's going to have to identify, like you said, what it is. He's going to have to contact a person that has dealt with the situation before And that person will then give the next things to help him with of how to handle this situation. So it's very difficult to handle a disease or illness or sickness or pests with normal, I would say, old remedies and things that you've heard, normal small things trying to sort out the pests or the disease. At the end of the day, if it is a problem, you're going to have to use someone that can help you to get rid of the pest or this illness or sickness or disease. So first, that person will have to contact a person that is in the field of helping eliminate pests and diseases. And then from there, it's just following the way to go and what the person has told you to do. And then surely after that, things will start looking better. Then after that, the disease or illness or sickness has been eliminated or the pests have been eliminated, it is important that you carry on with the steps that that person gave you so that it doesn't happen again. I've seen a lot in farmers and a lot of my clients as well that when they have a problem with a disease or a pest, they spray until it's eliminated. In aquaponics situation, it will be organic or biological things that work just as well as harsh chemicals, but they are organic and are not harmful. It takes a bit longer, but it works as well. But what I've seen is they spray and then when the situation is sorted out and the pest or disease has been eliminated, they stop. And that is the biggest mistake you can make. You've got to keep your spraying program strictly in place, spraying every 7 or every 14 days to make sure that that problem doesn't return or come back or have another influence on your farming operation.
Okay, so it does sound like an important step is to consult with a, crop protection specialist, or if it's in the case of, a pest situation, to contact an entomologist who can confirm the mitigation measures and all of that. So in terms of once the disease has been identified, is it necessary to report it? What happens with the harvest? Or if that is, the stage that the farmer is in, do they have to call back the produce? What does that look like?
So if all your procedures are in place, there's such a small chance that you'll have diseases or pests. Organic farmers struggle a little bit more because it's more easier to get pests and diseases because of the organic and biological things that are sprayed. It is a bit more difficult for organic farmers. Then it's not necessarily a problem when a farmer has an illness or sickness. You can easily see in the fruit or the end result product that comes off the produce that plant has literally been through disease or pest. So it has a total influence at the end of the day on selling the product. It doesn't look appealing to the eye. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look healthy. So it is going to be a struggle to sell that certain type of produce to the market or to the end consumer. So basically, having the disease or pest has got an influence on the end result of your product. And it is seen on the end result, whether it is fruit or vegetables or herbs and so on. So unfortunately, you can't hide that you have an illness or disease on the farm because your produce will show it as well. So it is quite difficult. If there is plants that are ill on the farm that have disease or pests and it cannot be sorted out, the best thing for the farm is to take plants out or discard the whole crop if it cannot be sorted out, which is not a very nice thing to have to do, but unfortunately it is a problem. So yeah, but if the procedures are in place, it's very unlikely that you'll have a bad crop regarding disease and pests.
And maybe looking at crop rotation, how important is that? Or is it even a practice that is done within a closed system? Because I know it is done in an open field with open field farming to rotate the crop. And that is usually a way to also mitigate, diseases, etc. So in a closed system, like a greenhouse, is crop rotation something that is practiced when it comes to crop protection?
So crop rotation in greenhouse farming in soil is definitely very important, like you said there, to eliminate disease and pests and things as well. But in aquaponic systems, touching on that subject, it isn't necessary for crop rotation. but we do change crops to meet the requirement of the market. So in summer, we will have lettuce requests, and in the winter, we won't have lettuce requests. So then we change it with something else. But we've seen if we keep our spraying procedures in every 7 or every 14 days, we have minimal problems with disease and pests in our greenhouses. So in aquaponics, if we're talking about aquaponics and hydroponics, it isn't a compulsory thing to do crop rotation. But soil farming greenhouses and open fields, it is very important to support crop rotation and to take the certain procedures to do crop rotation for the safety of your soil as well as disease and pest control.
MJ, you take pride and see pride and joy to be, organically certified and not utilizing chemical fertilizers. So for farmers who want to look into that, when it comes to crop protection, of course, how does a farmer approach that, being organically certified and just balancing the market requirements with the actual practice of the crop protection without applying chemical fertilizers and inputs?
Having an organic certification is actually very, very nice to have, and it's very beneficial for a farmer and a farming business. It is very difficult to get that certification. There are very, very strict requirements and procedures with regards to that. And if you do not comply, it is very difficult for them to approve it. So just for example, you need to be a certain distance away from a tar road. You need to be a certain distance away from an airfield or airport. There's a lot of things. You need to have proof of what you spray on the plants. They test your plants to see if what you're using on the plants. So it is very difficult to get organic certification, but it is a good thing to have. So we can prove that our farming technique is organic because you've got fish in the system. So we cannot spray any herbicides, pesticides, or chemicals and fertilizers in our systems because it will kill the fish. So that's a way that we prove that our systems are organic and the produce comes out of our system is organic. But these days, being organic certified, it comes with a price as well. Unfortunately, if you're not organic certified, you cannot put on your packaging, on your produce or product that it's organic. You have to be organically certified to be able to put that on your packaging. So we've thought about it a bit and we've got a way around it, and we've basically just put on our packaging farmed in aquaponics. Mm-hmm. So if you know aquaponics, it will come to mind that, this is definitely organic. So instead of using the word organic, we've just beat around the bush and we have just changed the term and said grown in aquaponics. So it is difficult to get the organic certification, and it is very expensive, what I've heard, but it is also worth it at the end of the day if you do get it.
And maybe to just close this conversation, what common mistakes have you made or have you seen farmers making in a closed system like a greenhouse with crop protection?
I've seen mistakes that have been made before. Is a farmer has seen that he has scouted and he has found that some of his plants have red spider mites on. And what he did was the dosage of organic pest repellent that he uses, and it unfortunately backfired, burnt the leaves of the plants. So it's very important that you take the normal procedures, don't overthink it, and also don't overdo it. Overdoing it, I've seen so much times before. If you do scout and you've seen pests, take the normal precautions and procedures that we teach you or that you've found out from someone else, a person that works with the chemicals every day or that works with pests and diseases every day, and take that information and just apply it on your farming practice. So it's very important that the right procedures are taken with regards to eliminating pests and diseases. Don't up your spraying program just because you've scouted and seen that there is a pest problem. Keep at the right dosage and just spray at the correct intervals, and it will eliminate at the end of the day.
And you know what I realized? There is one thing that we should probably touch on, and that is technology and tools that you are using in the greenhouse. Maybe if it is software that you can recommend to farmers in terms of monitoring pests and disease in the greenhouse? I don't know if that's something you can maybe speak about.
I have heard that there is certain technology that helps with pest control. Not much about diseases. I'm sure there are some as well, but we don't make use of a lot of technology regarding pest control and disease control. I feel that seeing the pest with your own eyes, as well as doing the correct scouting and putting in the effort to do it, works much more efficiently than technology. I've got a lot of trust in technology, but at certain points where produce that brings in income, it's more important for me that I trust rather me and my staff to be able to see what pests and diseases we've got. But yeah, certain pest control technology units are available. I've heard of zappers that people put up before greenhouses and inside greenhouses, in front of greenhouses, that basically work with the light and electrical current. The insect then shocks to death. And then there's other things I've heard of, low frequencies or high-pitched frequencies that also interfere with insects' path that they travel. There's a lot of things that people are using these days, dosing units where they dose the correct amount of poison for pests, and the dosing units that dose the correct amount of chemicals to prevent or to eliminate diseases. So there is a lot of technology, and it is definitely good for agriculture. But I would say in certain and different techniques. I would say commercial, big land farming or field farming, definitely technology will be beneficial for that farmer. Whereas if we have a greenhouse that's 300 square meters and two or one person can run that greenhouse permanently and be able to run it properly, then I would say it's not worth it to invest in technology. But definitely for big lands and big field farming, commercial field farming, it will be easier for the farmer to invest in technology.
And that was MJ Nunes, who is an agricultural manager and founder of Sable Creek Farms. We appreciate you for sharing your insights on the podcast. And for our listeners, if you would like to know more about this topic, you can visit www.foodformzansi.co.za. And that brings us to the end of this episode. Remember to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. From me, Patricia Tembo, our technical producer, Megan van der Vent, and the rest of #Team Food for Mzansi, thank you for listening.